All right. Welcome to another episode. Welcome to another episode of Breaking Bad Careers. This one is called 2020 Hindsight. I'm one of your hosts, Eli Beaumont, and we have Coach Peter Hill. And we are so excited to have you back here, to be back here in the new year. So happy New Year to all of you. Today's episode is really about kind of doing some deep reflection and doing a bit of retrospective thinking on 2020 and taking those learnings and applying them into how we're approaching our go forward strategies for 2021. So at the top of this session, what we're going to do is kind of discuss this tried and tested framework that Peter and I have been utilizing for our own business and personally to kind of assess ways that we want to kind of take our learnings from 2020 and bring them into the first quarter of 2021. And then after that, this is a live Ask Us Anything or an Ask Me Anything. So we invite you to literally go into the comments and ask us your questions. Anything is open, anything related to career development, that is. So if you have questions about landing a job in 2021, if you've been laid off, if you have questions about resumes, interviewing, it could, literally anything that comes to mind that you've been feeling challenged by as it relates to your career, we're here to answer those questions. And why are we the right people to answer those questions? Well, let me tell you. So my name is Eli Beaumont. I'm an international career coach. I've been in the space for about 6 to 7 years. And I've supported thousands and thousands of individuals across 120 countries in changing and pivoting careers. It's been an amazing journey thus far. I was and am now a recovering management consultant and had the pleasure of working across, Washington, D.C., London, where I met my esteemed colleague here, Peter Hill. Got to work in Beirut, Lebanon for a while, and then most recently in New York. So, feeling good, doing well, excited to be here supporting you in whatever questions you may have. Peter?
Right on. Great self-introduction, Eli. And hey, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021. My name is Peter Hill, and the partner in crime business collaborator with Eli on a couple of different business projects, which are all centered around career development and helping people identify their career motivators and get out there and find meaningful jobs for themselves and meaningful careers for themselves. So like Eli, I'm a global career coach. I've been doing this type of work officially since 1999 when I first hung my shingle out. And I've been in private practice for 15 years before saying yes to a full-time job in higher education. Interesting how it unfolded. One of my clients, who was a business school, invited me into a 1-year consulting contract, and that led into a full-time offer, which I ended up saying yes to. So I spent 10 years in higher education, running career services, and that's where Eli and I met. And then just recently in 2020, I have returned to private practice, career coaching individuals one-on-one, working with Eli on a couple of different initiatives to help people with their careers. And, both Eli and I, we just love what we do for a living. We can't get enough of helping people along their career journeys, along their quest for more meaning in their work, more impact in their work, more contribution in their work. And today, we've titled this 2020 Hindsight. We thought that would be a nice catchy title given the timing of things. And not in the sense of diving into 2020 and really dissecting everything and wallowing in it, right? It's more about, what can we learn? What can we take away? What can we reflect on? How can we set ourselves up for success as we ease here into 2021? And so what are we? We're in the first week, right? First week of 2021.
Yeah, I know. It feels it's already taking shape and form, and it feels like we're already a couple weeks in. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I know I feel like we've accomplished quite a bit.
Yeah, it's been a busy first week. I mean, you and I were just talking this morning how busy you've been on the coaching side, actually working with clients. I've had a few coaching clients myself this week, and then also you and I have already had, what is this? This is Wednesday, right? So we've already had 2 really great conversations, just you and I, working through some of these frameworks that we're about to share. with everybody today. And it's been super powerful, and we've made massive progress and laid a foundation for not only Q1, but just for the rest of 2021 and beyond. So
Exactly.
super fun.
Exactly. So, Peter, yeah, you and I had worked together in the past. We both worked in the corporate setting and or higher education, and it's always about like goal setting and kind of looking back and making things happen. We often do it in like corporate environments or like what we've just done for our own business, right? But it's actually extremely applicable to take these approaches and these frameworks and applying them to our own personal goals and accomplishments that we'd like to achieve based on our learnings year in, year out. So you actually brought a lot of these frameworks forward that we started utilizing just this past Monday. And I thought it'd be great if you wouldn't mind just elaborating a little bit for our viewers here today on how they could utilize these approaches based on some of our examples.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wish I could take credit for these frameworks, but I can't. These are a couple of little tricks that I've learned along the way. I've had great mentors, great leaders. I've had great managers in my career, and have learned a ton from all of them. And so what we're going to share with you today are a couple of frameworks to help us reflect on the journey so far, and think about next steps. I'll just kind of leave it at that kind of high level, right? And so the first framework we want to share with you is a really simple exercise. It's like so simple, but it's almost like deceivingly simple. But behind the simplicity is incredible power. And it's a framework that we call plus delta. Okay. And the idea with a plus delta is we basically take, part of the time, say in a meeting or a conversation, we take some very intentional time to reflect on the pluses or all of the things that went well for us up until now. Or in this case, we could say all the pluses for 2020. And that's what you and I did this week. We did this plus delta reflecting on how 2020 went for us, both personally and professionally. So the pluses are about what went well, and it's about reflecting on it, and it's about writing it down. It's about documenting it, getting it out of your head onto paper. Very powerful process. And then the delta means change, right? So it's like, given the pluses, given how things have gone so far, or in 2020, what is it we want to pivot? What is it we want to do differently? It could be a change of direction. It could be building on something that went well and making it better. Or it could be a complete like 180 of something, right? But that's kind of the first framework. It's called a plus delta. It's something that I learned along the way in higher education, a way to, like once a quarter, twice a year, maybe we used to use them at offsites. Yeah. When we would get the whole global team together, and we would kind of start off the engagement with a plus delta so that we could all ground ourselves together at, a starting point to do our planning.
Makes sense to me. And, the approach we took is super simple. We literally just opened up a Google Doc, and that's a shared file. So if you want to do a plus delta on your own, you can do it on a Word doc or something. But if you want to do it with a partner, whether it's a business partner, maybe it's your partner in life, like a life partner, your spouse, whoever it is, you can just use a Google Doc, which is shared, and then you can both like plug and play and add your plus deltas. So, Peter, I think like just as examples, right? Like for you and I personally, one of our pluses was that we launched Your Career Strategy this past year back in May, and we had 27 paid participants in our first 2 cohorts, and a total of 57 workshop attendees, and that's including the pilot program that we had with a fantastic cohort who was able to give us a lot of feedback that helped us really like adapt our program. So, to us, that was one big plus. I think
it was a massive plus. I mean, you and I we've been very intentional about making sure that we limit our cohort sizes for this particular program to no more than 20, right? And so when you think about the fact that, so we ran the program 3 times, right? We ran our pilot, I think, when was it? Was it April, May?
Yeah, May.
May. We ran our pilot in May, so we were almost halfway through the year. We conceptualized this whole thing back in March, April, if I remember. Then we actually, we did all the work on the messaging and the branding and the programming and the instructional design and whatnot, and then we launched our pilot in May. And when you think about 57 participants over 3 cohorts, like it actually, I think it kind of exceeded my expectations in terms of how many seats we would fill.
Yeah.
Right. That's 3 less than full house for the entire program.
That's it. So, so for us, that was definitely a plus. For you, think about it in terms of life, right? There's the personal side, there's the professional side, whether it's a career win, whether you started your own business, or whether it's something personal like, finding love in 2020 amidst the rubble, or something, not getting COVID and your family is like totally healthy, right? Because a lot of people didn't get to experience that, and for all those who had struggles, it was a challenging year. So pluses could take a variety of shapes.
Absolutely. And not to beat a dead horse, but to go back to the the career strategy series and the really phenomenal engagement we've gotten with participants and filling seats. These participants have also been amazing at giving us feedback.
Yeah.
Right. We've been quite intentional about reaching out for the feedback, but they've been very responsive in giving us some great feedback. And the feedback can also be categorized in the plus delta framework, right? We've gotten very positive feedback, but then we've gotten some other developmental feedback so that we can then take it and make our program better for the next cohort and the next cohort after that, and so on and so forth. So yeah, massive plus there. There were some other examples we wanted to share.
Yeah.
Of pluses. One of them was about just the fact that you and I, like, we literally get to wake up every morning and do something that we love.
That's the truth.
Right. And we, as I mentioned, we had this idea. It evolved around the March, April period. We buckled down to identify whether we really wanted to do this. And then deciding to do it together. Yeah. Right. And really making sure that we were both all in on the vision and the working together and really building out this program and these initiatives to all that they can be. Right. And, not to dive too deep into the full vision of what we see this being 3, 5, 10 years from now, but we really brought this forward with all of our shared expertise, our shared passion, to build this. And it's been super meaningful for me. And I know we've talked about this week. It's been meaningful for you as well. But what a plus it is to be able to wake up in the morning and work on this and do something we love.
Yeah, 100%. And it's also bringing in and being able to work authentically for ourselves. You know what I mean? It's like so many of us are stuck, working in an environment that may be less than ideal, right? Or in a culture where you feel like you have to really limit your authenticity because you can't speak up the way that you want to. You're not received or understood the way you want to be understood. And it's not to say, like, Peter and I have had great careers. We've worked at incredible institutions that have taught us everything we've learned today. But to be in a place where we get to be fully authentic and we get to, do stuff like this, like Breaking Bad careers and getting like these cool visuals and like looking like total badasses on.
Speak for yourself, man.
No, you look like a badass, man. I mean, not right now. We look like a bunch of wide grinning, optimists. But yeah, it's really cool to just be able to step into the work that you do every day and do it authentically, knowing that I am not only doing what I love, but I get to practice what I preach. Right. And that's a huge plus for both of us, because when we're working with our clients, it's not like, yeah, you should really be doing something you enjoy. And then we're not. So that's.
No, it wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be genuine at all.
Exactly. And, thanks to Michelle for the comments, saying run a great program, spoke for one of our attendees, Jeff, who apparently loved it. So thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate you.
Right on, Michelle. Thanks. Yeah, so this Breaking Bad career initiative as well. It came up on our plus list, right? This is something this was actually your idea to start with, Eli, right? And you kind of threw it out there, and we kind of tossed it back and forth, and we played with the idea, and we experimented with some visuals, and um, um, we're having a lot of fun with this one,
Yeah.
right? And so for us, this is a plus. This is part of the waking up in the morning and doing what we love, and experimenting, and just trying new stuff and having fun with it, and not being worried about the outcome, kind of focusing on the process, focusing on the journey right now.
And so, I mean, those are some examples, okay, folks? So please, as we're talking, start mulling around some pluses for yourself. What are some of the greatest takeaways that you have, and the greatest accomplishments or moments that you can take away from 2020? They can be external, they can be internal. You could have had shifts in mindset, in ways that you approach, your work, ways that you approach life, ways that you react to situations may have shifted, right? There are so many things that could have effectively changed for you and be taken as pluses. So, as Peter and I continue through this framework and then the next, feel free to allow your mind to marinate around those things that you really are taking away, in a positive light from 2020. And then on the other side of that, we have our deltas, right?
Oh,
And
we do. Yes, we do.
And these aren't necessarily bad things. These are learning opportunities. Deltas are changes, right? Things that we'd like to change as we potentially head into this new year. So, for example, for you and I, Peter, like sometimes when you're starting something new, whether it's like a new business or a new idea, you tend to just kind of just go with and try to utilize minimum viable products. So it's like, what can we get out there and just utilize and do as quickly as possible? And I found that Peter and I both agree, but we found ourselves being quite comparison oriented. It's like, oh, what are these other coaches doing? What marketing tools are they using? What about this? What about that? Should we be doing stuff on LinkedIn? Should we be doing stuff on Twitter? Should we be doing stuff on Instagram? Do we need to do it on Facebook as well? Do we go deep on YouTube? What do we do? So we're just trying to do too much, I think. And one of our deltas is we want to do gut checks more regularly. Does this feel right? Is it in our energy center? Is this something that's going to feel not only authentic to us, but is energizing us, right? And if we are planning on working with somebody, whether it's on the marketing side or, or strategy side, for our business, maybe it's important that we just don't go with the first person that we see. Maybe we need to do some research. Maybe we need to get some feedback from others that have worked with other people and get some recommendations and things like that, where we were just kind of looking and acting, which it's not a bad thing. It got this off the ground and it got us working and doing something. But going into 2021, we can be a little bit more deliberate, and a little bit more oriented around what is actively energizing us.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us, we made some investments in some certain marketing approaches, and even though our gut feeling was this isn't in our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Meaning neither you nor I really we don't wake up in the morning to do this type of marketing, right? And it was more on the outbound side, kind of direct contacting, cold calling, profiles of groups of individuals who we felt could benefit from our programs. And now it's not that the targeting was off. In fact, I think the targeting is fantastic, but the approach to the target was what didn't really energize either you or I.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so reflecting on what, we keep using the word authentic, but it's so true. It wasn't authentic for us. Right. And so the big delta for me is to, really re-engage with what marketing approaches do you and I feel most comfortable with, right? That we actually look forward to doing. Today, doing a live AMA is something I look forward to do. I'm comfortable doing it. doing our webinar series, doing our presentations for the various audiences that we were blessed to do so in 2020 and we will do in 2021. Those are like total comfort zones for us. And I'm not suggesting we don't get out of our comfort zone. We all know the mantra on that one. But there's a point where you have to recognize that there's a certain area that just doesn't float your boat, you know, and you need to either adjust your strategy or outsource it completely.
100%. That's definitely, you know, one of our deltas. So, you know, I don't know about all of you, but I'm sure there are plenty of things that you look back on the year and you're like, with this 2020 hindsight, this clear vision, but also, you know, looking back at the year 2020, what are some of those things that I want to approach differently as I head into this year, right? Just list them down. And these are going to be really, really great clues as it relates to where you might want to start focusing attention for the first quarter of 2021. Now, Peter, I think we had like another framework that kind of takes us from, you know, this post-mortem look at our pluses and our deltas, and it just gets us to a phase where we can start planning, like more strategically planning on how to execute certain goals. So I'd love it if you could take our audience through that as well.
Yeah. So this one is called Start, Stop, Continue. Okay. And the Start, Stop, Continue is, it kind of grows out of maybe the plus deltas. Okay. But the idea is that it's becoming more actionable. It's becoming more strategic. Right. So if I remember, like the way it unfolded for us, we did our plus delta right before the New Year, before the New Year's. I think it was like 30th, December 30th, maybe even the 31st, but we did this plus delta then. And then we did our Start, Stop, Continue on Monday, which was the 4th, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we had about a 3 or 4 day gap between doing our plus delta, letting that percolate, right? And then coming back together, and on our next call, we did our Start, Stop, Continue. So the idea with the Start, Stop, Continue is just exactly what it sounds like. What do we want to start doing that we haven't done before, or we haven't tried before? What do we want to completely stop doing? What wasn't working to the extent that we just don't want to do it anymore?
Yeah.
And then the Continue is kind of a hybrid. It kind of grows out of the plus delta, right? Which is, okay, we saw some of this working. We could definitely make it better. We could build on it, and we want to continue doing it because we know it has potential, or we know it's already working, right? Yeah. And so it's really a structured conversation. I'm thinking back to Monday when we did our Stop, Start, Continue. I think what we did, we actually started with the Continue.
Yeah. And
then we reverse engineered into the Start and the Stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, for many of us, it's you know, a lot of you aren't sitting here thinking about like, what can I do for my business? Or maybe you are, right? So, you know, Peter and I feel like maybe we can share some of like our own personal Stop, Start, Continues for the year, just to showcase how, you know, you might be able to utilize these with yourself. So, you know, Peter, what are you going to stop? What are you going to start? And what are you going to continue with as we head into 2021?
Okay. So Start, Stop, Continue. I'll do that in that order. No, actually, you know what? I'm gonna do the reverse engineering. I'm gonna start with Continue, and then I'll go backwards. So what I'm gonna continue doing, and I've been more and more intentional about doing this, not only in 2020. 2020 challenged me to do this on a more regular basis. Okay. But I also have been doing it for years, which is to really reconnect with my why. Okay. Every year when I was working in higher education, at least or once or twice a year, I would do a quick audit, and I would go back to some of my self-reflective work that I've always done, and I would reconnect with my why and make sure that the work I was doing in higher education really resonated with my why, my purpose, what brings me fulfillment, and what is the contribution I want to make to society, right? And so I 2020 challenged me to do that on a more regular basis, for sure. But I'm going to continue doing that. And starting Q1, I'm going to make sure that I audit my why. and I make sure that whatever projects I'm working on are connected to that sense of purpose. Okay, so that's my continue. The start is around exercise, and it's not that I don't already exercise. Eli knows this, and I'm sure some people who are on this AMA who know us well know that I like to run. And so since I've moved back to Hawaii, and since I've returned to entrepreneurship, I have continued to run on a regular basis. I'm training for my next half marathon, but I've been running in the evening. And so my start here is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot that, and I need to start running in the mornings, because I actually find more value and intentionality about waking up early, starting my day with a run, and setting myself up for success for the rest of the day, rather than running when I'm tired and I'm, when I'm out running, it's meditative, right? All these ideas come to my head. And so when I'm running in the evenings, I tend to meditate more on problems. Whereas when I run in the morning, I tend to meditate more on possibilities and opportunities.
Interesting. Yeah, what a shift, right? That's not just like an exercise shift. That's a mental shift. That's preparing for the day. That gets you in the right mindset.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
totally
big impact.
And it's for me, it's really palpable.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my start. My start is just to pivot to running in the evenings to running in the mornings. And then to stop for me, oh God, YouTube.
Come on, man. That's where we are. We're on YouTube. You're going to stop watching us? Or?
We're on YouTube right now. I think maybe I should add a qualifier: useless YouTube.
There you
go. Kudos to YouTube. They've got the algorithm so tuned in to what drives the addictive side of our personalities and our psyches. That even now I'm mid-career. I'm looking at setting myself up for the next part of my career. I work a lot with people who are very early in their careers, and they might look at someone like me and think I'm not susceptible to being addicted to YouTube. But I'm just as human as everybody else, and YouTube has kind of gotten a hold of me, especially in 2020 with all the noise, right?
Yeah.
So my stop is to get myself off of useless YouTube.
Cool. Good, man. So
what about you, man?
Yeah, mine are quick. I think I'll use the same format. So continue. I've been fortunate to have gone through a lot of mindset shifts over the course of the last few years, and something that I learned that's kind of helped shift a lot of anxiety that I've had is the power of speaking positively to oneself. So I would literally tell myself, "Hey, Eli, I love you so much," and I'd give myself a hug. You know what I mean? And it's it sounds corny, but the way that I speak to myself is so compassionate these days compared to what it used to be, where I used to be my own worst enemy most of the time. And that's actually a norm for many of us. So for me, I want to continue to not only speak positively to myself, but manifest things in my life by continuing to speak positively. If I put things out, we create our reality. So if I keep putting things out into the world that I want, then, and I think about those more regularly versus oh, this might not happen for me, or oh, this is so hard, maybe I should just give up. No more of that language, right? So I'm going to continue speaking positively. I'm going to start practicing mindfulness. And I use this cool app called Hindsight Timer. It's something I was doing for a little while on a regular basis. And Hindsight Timer is a free app. It's got 80,000 or something like that meditations on there. Super, super cool application, both for Android or iPhone. And, my goal is to sit and meditate 4 to 5 times a week at, 15 to 20 minutes a day. Something I enjoyed. It helps me really improve the mental elasticity of my mind from a point of, it allows me to pause between thoughts, emotions, and reactions, right? And that's something I want to stop doing in 2021 is being hyper reactive when either receiving something, whether it's feedback or a gift, and really just take that space to think before I speak or act, because that power really resides with me. we don't have much control in life, but one thing that we do control is our reaction, or our response to whatever's happening around us. And it's easy to forget that. And even though I feel like I've made a lot of progress, I want to, like, if I can, stop being hyper reactive. Which, yeah, easier said than done. We're human, right? But
Well, I've known you for, what is it now, 5 years?
yeah,
4, 5, 6,
five.
5 years. Yeah. And yeah, so just to be supportive here, you are absolutely getting better at that.
Thank you, sir.
I see it all the time. So I've known you for a while, so I've witnessed your journey.
I appreciate you, man. So with these two frameworks, you have your plus, your deltas, right? So pluses are the positives that you're taking away from 2020 based on reflection. Delta is going to be the changes that you're going to make based on that reflection. And then you're going to have your start, stop, continues. So what are the things that going into 21, I'm going to start doing? What am I going to stop doing? And then what am I going to continue doing and roll over from the year before? Now, once you take all of these things, right, Peter, like we've taken all of these things and we're kind of starting to do our Q1, our first quarter of 2021 planning. And in doing that, whether it's for our personal selves or for our business, we're able to kind of take a look at like these deltas and take a look at the things that we want to start doing. And from those, start to grab, for us, we were going to do something a little bit more digestible, like 3 achievable priority goals. So based on, what we've taken away, you and I are going to like literally sit down and set 3 achievable goals and break those goals down into achievable steps over the course of this next quarter.
Yep.
So if you take this framework and this approach, you should be able to do the same, whether it's for personal goals you'd like to achieve or things that you'd like to see happen professionally, whether it's at work or with the business that you're either creating or thinking about creating and starting.
Yeah, it's to Eli's point, it's like a super powerful process to do it together. Eli and I have done it together. We've done it together not only in our current business format, but we've done it together when we work together in higher education.
Yeah.
And you can also do it yourself. You can do it with a partner in life, do it with a family member, do it with a business partner, do it with a peer. Simple but quite powerful, and it does lead into the more concrete planning aspect.
Absolutely. So hopefully you found that helpful. Hopefully it was useful to you, and you'll be able to kind of leverage this approach. It's something you do over the course of a few days, a few weeks. Peter and I are going to be taking a few weeks. So you want to do one, let it marinate, jump into the next thing, let it marinate, and then strategically like work through these things. Doesn't always need to start exactly on the first of the year. We can actually do these anytime. So with that being said, we're happy to open it up right now to any questions you may have, right? We're here to kind of support anybody who's actively, been impacted this year professionally. Maybe you've lost your job. Maybe you're thinking about transitioning. Maybe you're just unhappy in your current role. Or maybe you have a career management question. You're having a workplace challenge that you feel comfortable asking on a live session here. So, we'll invite you right now, if you have any comments or anything that pops up into your mind that we can support you in answering, please, throw it in the comments, throw it in the chat, and we will take your questions.
And while we're waiting for some questions to roll in, can you give me access to the chat, Eli? I don't see it on my side.
It's under the comments section, I believe, in StreamYard.
No, I don't have anything.
Hmm.
Okay, I can leave it to you to monitor the questions.
Yeah, totally.
I did have a couple of questions come through by email in advance, knowing that we were going to be doing this, and I can jump on those if we need to.
Yeah, let's start with one of those.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the questions was like specifically related to job search and kind of building off of 2020. And it's also, well, it's more about job search and career transition. So the question was, I was planning to transition my career internationally
Mm.
But then COVID happened. I know things will open back up, and I guess things is travel and international business and all of that. We just don't know when. What can I do to maximize the chances of success when things do open back up?
That's a pretty good question. I think both you and I have supported, well over something like 10,000 job seekers, most of whom were job seeking internationally.
Yeah.
Just due to the nature of the higher education institutions we worked in, the locations we were working in London and Shanghai, in New York and DC, right?
Yeah.
So in particular, these are things you can do regardless if you're job seeking internationally or you're seeking domestically, right? Like a lot of jobs have been impacted, but really where one should always start is cultivating and maintaining, I guess, first understanding where you want to go. Like, what's your target location, right? And Peter, I think you shared something with me about a client that's actively like thinking about a few different locations right now, and you just help them narrow down to one specific location. So it's less about, you want to take a job search that's extremely broad. So let's say, oh, I'm open to anything. I'm open to like working in Dubai. I'm open to working in Canada. I'm open to working in the US. I'm open to working in London, right? That's pretty broad. Already you've overwhelmed yourself with options. You're looking online for opportunities across all of these areas. That's going to be like 30, 40,000 opportunities that are popping up in every search, and you're just going to feel like you're spreading yourself quite thin. So first thing, narrow scope. Like, where do you ideally want to be over the course of the next year to 3 years, right? And then it's like, well, based on my work authorization, what makes the most sense, right? So if you're thinking about like pivoting to the United States from a foreign country, or pivoting from the U.S. to England or France or somewhere that requires like a visa, well, what's that work authorization process look like? What visas are accessible to me? How do I think about setting myself up for success? So if you're in Europe and you want to make it to the US, maybe it's working at a multinational company where you have work authorization first, networking internally and starting to build rapport with people in other offices, and then proving what you're able to do. So that way you can then reposition yourself in, a year's time to get an what's it called? An L1 visa, I think it is, which is an internal corporate visa that gives you access, internally. Let's say you're at KPMG, for example. That's an accounting firm, and it's an international accounting firm, audit firm, management consultancy. And you want to move to the US from, let's say, Berlin. So you'd be networking internally, and then you would apply for an L1 visa through the company. And if you get it, you can only work with KPMG in the United States through that visa, right? So that's strategic, and it's going to get you from point A to point B, right? So those are just like two quick tips from my side, but I'm sure you got some more, Peter.
I do, Eli. Absolutely. So, okay, yeah. So the question was kind of framed as like, oh, the plans I had were stifled because of COVID, and therefore now I have a problem.
Yeah.
But I'd like to reframe this, because I actually think that, so yes, we can't control what's going on and the impact that COVID is having on international travel and career opportunities and whatnot. We can't control that. What we can do is we can control how we choose to react to this. So the reaction I recommend is look for the possibilities here. Look for the opportunities. This great pause that we're all experiencing right now is the perfect time to set yourself up for success. Okay. And so Eli mentioned the word networking. So I think we're all familiar with the idea of, this kind of mantra, like networking is the best way to find a job, all of that, right? And we're not here to disagree with that, but we prefer to unpack it and be a bit more strategic about exactly what networking means. So the most successful international transitions that Eli and I have seen were not with job seekers who were just shooting off resumes through Indeed to a company in another country. Okay. They were achievable and achieved because they leveraged their network of trusting relationships. Okay. So knowing that, now is, I think, the perfect time to be laying an incredible foundation for building a really robust web of trusting relationships, right? We're all super comfortable with digital technology thanks to COVID. We're all comfortable with Zoom and Google Meet and whatever other technology you've been using. And you know, I know Eli's been using Lunch Club as an example. That's another platform, right? But because everyone is so comfortable working from home, having meetings virtually, now is the perfect time for virtual networking. Perfect. I mean, it couldn't be better. Knowing that if you're networking internationally, you'd have to be doing it virtually anyway.
Yeah.
For now, anyway, right? So, you know, what's the low-hanging fruit here in terms of developing your relationships internationally? And it's starting with your alumni networks, people that you have some type of affinity with. So it's the alumni of the schools you went to. It's the alumni of the companies that you used to work at, or maybe you're currently working at if you work for a global firm. It's family and friends, right? It's things like that. I think this is the perfect time to be networking internationally and laying those seeds and those foundations, knowing that successful international career transitions, 95% of them happen successfully through relationships. Now that's separate, of course, from the internal transfers that you alluded to earlier. I'm talking about the external job search, right?
Yeah, 100%, Peter. I'd say, you know, as someone is asking, it's what was the name of that networking tool that you mentioned, Peter? So I think
Lunch Club.
One of them is Lunch Club, and that is you know, it's free, right? And you know, maybe we can list out like a bunch of like free tools to conduct either like virtual networking or tools that you could be utilizing right now that are kind of new to the jobs, you know, the job search process these days, right? So lunchclub.com, you can literally go in, sign up using your Gmail account, your Google account, whatever, and it's super easy. You create a very short profile with a bio. You list your interests, and based on those interests and your bio and like who you want to meet, you sign up for sessions based on your availability in your calendar on a weekly basis. It could be one all the way up to like 5 or 6 if you wanted. And the app basically does this algorithm that says, oh, you know, you're free and this person is free and you both have these similar interests, so maybe you should meet. And it does the email introduction for you. It creates a video link for you. All you need to do is say, hey, happy to meet you, so-and-so. Looking forward to our conversation next week. Then you show up and you have a good conversation. And it's pretty cool. You know, I've met like really interesting people through there, gotten some clients through there. More than that, I've just been able to help people out who've been going through either like career transition or, you know, are looking for like business advice or, you know, whatever it may be. Or, you know, someone offered to help me like review my poetry. Which is like odd, right? But it was so cool. And he's a brilliant poet. And I invited him to one of my classical music concerts that I host, and he attended. And it was, you know, just very, very cool in building and establishing rapport during a time where we've been kind of closed off and haven't really gotten to meet strangers. We've only been around people in our bubble in order to stay safe, right? So Lunch Club is pretty cool.
Yeah. I need to talk to new people, Eli. I'm spending too much time with you.
I know, man. You're probably losing your mind. Like I annoy myself. I can't imagine how annoyed you must be.
Look, the other jokes aside, the other tool I found useful is meetups, meetup.com. Right. So meetups still happen. They pre-COVID, the meetup tended to be more of a platform for creating in-person meetups, but they've completely shifted to virtual meetups. And so, like, I created an account. You know, you kind of dive into your profile, you set your preferences, and before you know it, you start getting kind of these recommendations or newsletters from meetup.com of like upcoming meetups that match my profile, right? So I think I like tick the boxes on like career development and entrepreneurship and that type of thing. And so I'm getting these recommendations from meetup.com to participate in virtual meetups. And so like every now and then I jump on a meetup, and I literally know nobody on these calls. But my objective is that If I could set up maybe one follow-up meeting with somebody, I feel like it was a good use of my time, right? So that's another platform I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's super cool. I actually didn't know that Meetup had gone virtual. I thought but it makes sense. Like, of course, they need to adapt, right? So I think I'm gonna take that cue and like
No,
start doing this.
yeah. I mean, it's the platform itself hasn't changed, right?
Yeah,
It's still just a kind of a clearinghouse of ways for people, people like you and I, who want to create our own community and have a meetup. That part hasn't changed, but what has changed is that the people who run the meetups have just completely pivoted to doing their meetups online, and it's super powerful and it's super timely, and it's great that they have that platform to make it happen.
yeah, totally. So I I guess like one thing that I use with my clients often is like I tell them to check out like Slack is a instant messaging tool that corporations and institutions or startups might utilize to keep in touch between their teams. But Slack also has this open source channels, or these open source channels for software developers to speak, program managers, project managers, people with like-minded interests, right? So if you like Google, Slack channels for my profession, what's going to happen is like you might pop up a ton of places where let's say you're a data scientist and you want to talk to other people who are like in the space and you have questions or about some of the work that you're doing. You could literally just go into one of those channels, post like, hey, I'm working on this database code, can someone take a look for me? Or, oh man, I've been wanting to get into data science for so long. What's it like to work at like in that field within one of these companies? And people will answer your questions. So you have stuff like Slack, you have forums in sites like Reddit, which are primarily like thread forums, but there are so many stories of people like connecting through Reddit and then actually meeting up in person once things have settled down. So I think like if you want it and if you want to make the time, which has I think been like kind of like this underlying lack of motivation and wanting to do anything just due to everything that's been going on, but hopefully what this new year is going to do is hopefully reinstate and rekindle some of this motivation that we typically used to have that got sucked out of us in the year prior. And like, listen, like I'm an optimist. I feel like I'm a pretty energized person, and like you and I have accomplished a lot, Peter. But my motivation was pretty low, like whether it was like watching useless YouTube videos or binging on Netflix or just like snacking uncontrollably because of my emotional eating for reasons unbeknownst to me that were like subconscious, or this like this collective grieving that was going on. Like, yeah, we gotta move past this stuff, and what better time than the beginning of this year to look at last year and then move forward and leverage some of these great tools that exist right now to help you in starting to network virtually.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but like this the the way we are now networking through Lunch Club, through meetups, through the other platforms, it's kind of rekindled this sense of adventure in me, right? Like I'm meeting people who I would otherwise never have met, honestly, never. Because I would have gone to a meetup in my hometown and met people from my hometown. And now I'm going to meetups and I'm meeting people from, Washington, D.C. and New York and Los Angeles and, other parts of the world. And these are people I would never otherwise meet. And I think that's just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's opening up the world. Like in some ways it's closing up the world, but in other ways it's like opening us up to a lot more experience. So it's all about
100%.
our perspective and the lens that we choose to look through. And that's that's with anything, right?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. 100%.
All
We have
right.
any some questions?
I'm gonna put the call for a few more questions to
Mhm.
come out. Like, don't hesitate. Like, you have us here. You have us here for another 10 minutes. So if you have a burning question, if you have something in mind, you're like, oh man, I wish I had some insight on X, Y, and Z as it relates to my career. Pose a question, right? We're happy to answer it. Um, guess in the interim, Peter, you said you might have like another question or two that someone had left you before.
I do. I do. Um, so this is like less related to careers, but maybe we can provide some insight from maybe just from our own experience. But um, 2020 was a really tough year. I've been finding it really hard to stay positive recently. Uh, I watched your previous AMA and webinars, and you guys seem like totally optimistic, possibility oriented guys. So, do you guys have any hacks that could help me kind of stay positive? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one. So, any advice you could give would probably help other people as well.
Yeah. I mean, something I do for myself and something that I always share with my clients, it's a quick hack, but you have to remember to do it. That's a challenge, right? So oftentimes, like, we just feel down. We get like emotional, and maybe that emotion leads to a mood, which means like a stagnant, consistent emotion that has us feeling negative. So what I do is when I feel this, I stop myself. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this way. Rather than get into a slew of thoughts, I stop myself. I'm like, okay, I am feeling kind of sad and kind of angry. Why? Like, what caused that? Right? Because it just comes up all of a sudden. So, I'll dig back and I'll get to like a certain thought, right? It's always triggered by a certain thought. We have 60,000 thoughts a day. So if you can like narrow it down to like, oh, there's a thought or an instance that happened, an action, right? And you're like, oh, I guess I'm still angry about that thing that happened, or I keep thinking about this thing, whether it was something that happened at work, something someone said to me, maybe something my family said to me, right? And it has me ruminating. Then I ask myself, okay, well, is it true? And just, that question is enough to like, most of the time we create like these false realities, these false scenarios in our own mind. So, always stopping myself, narrowing things back and going to like root cause of what's causing this issue. And then asking myself, okay, well, is this justified? Is it true? So that's just something that I do, and I try to do. I don't always catch myself, right? We're human, but if you are able to, it's always a good check and balance. Yeah.
Um,
You have any hacks, Peter?
I do, and I'm the reason I'm looking over here is because I'm on Amazon right now, and I'm looking for the title of a book. Oh gosh. Okay, I'm gonna find it before the end of this call, before the end of
All
this
good.
AMA. But what I wanted to get at was my hack is more practical. Um, More, I would say it's like immediately actionable, which is to be really cognizant of diet and exercise. Okay, and I'll focus on the exercise. There is plenty of research around, um, um, you know, populations who are healthier, who get more exercise, have lower rates of depression. Okay, and I've personally found, the running that I do on a regular basis to be tremendously empowering in terms of keeping myself positive, focusing on possibilities rather than problems and whatnot. So, even if it's just going for like being super intentional about getting out every single day and going for a 20-minute walk, right? And if that eventually leads into maybe, doing, 3 days a week of walking and 4 days a week of running, whatever, or whatever exercise. If you're not exercising, I would say the hack is to get into a regular routine of just some very basic exercise, because the chemicals in the brain, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a neuroscientist by any stretch of the imagination, but the research I have done, the reading I have done, has taught me enough about the topic to know how important taking care of yourself physically feeds into your mental well-being.
Yeah.
So my hack is exercise. And while Eli takes the reins, I'm going to keep looking for this book because I want to recommend it to our audience. Give me a second.
All good. Well, we're heading towards the end of this episode here. So what I want to remind you all is that Peter and I are here. We're here to support you with any type of career questions that you have, any types of challenges that you're effectively going through in, as you navigate the journey that is your career. So Peter and I will invite you to book a free coaching and discovery call with us. It's a free 30-minute call. It's no obligations, right? Literally any questions that you have, and any challenge that you're actively experiencing, bring it with you to the call. Like, we feel like we can often figure things out on our own and do things independently, but I always, think about like athletics, right? How many professional athletes are there who wouldn't have actively succeeded had they not had coaches alongside them? And even when they've reached their peak, they still have coaches beside them pushing them to continue to move forward. You know what I mean? So we're offering free coaching. Most of the time it's like, oh, you need a coach for like, soccer or football, or maybe if you're like a musician, you need a teacher all the way through. Well, I think, something fairly complex, I must say, is life and career. And we're kind of expected to just figure it out. Well, we're here to tell you, why not seek out a little bit of support? Let's get some insights, give us a space to like dig into some of these challenges that you're experiencing, and we'll utilize some of our frameworks, our techniques to really support you in crafting and thoughtfully thinking through what it is that you can do to, start actioning some strategies right then and there. Outside of that, if there's anyone else that who's having some difficulty with career clarity, they're not sure, unhappy to a certain extent about like directionally where they want to go, then have them check out yourcareerstrategy.com. They can also book in a call, but our goal is to support people in really achieving career clarity in 2021. And we're excited to be bringing more iterations of our program forward for anyone who's really thinking about what the next steps might be, even if it's not immediate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our goal for these coaching and discovery calls is to, ideally, we're able to help somebody get unstuck really quickly and help them fly solo really quickly. And that would be our objective, is to help as many people as possible doing that. For sure, some of you will have questions about our program, and we're going to share with you on the call what the program's about. But our main goal is to get you unstuck as quickly as possible.
Perfect. Peter, did you find the name of that book?
I did. I actually just WhatsApped it to you because I think you have access to the chat. Are you able to put it in the chat, or should I just give a verbal?
Well, the chat goes on across all platforms. So if you want, just kind of give the verbal name.
Okay. So great book. It's called Spark, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain.
Cool.
Okay. And the author is John Ratey, R-A-T-E-Y. Phenomenal book. It's all about the psychology behind a brain, what chemistry goes on when you exercise, and how it activates our kind of mental capacity towards possibility and positivity and high performance.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Peter. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, that's it. I think great call, great questions. I'm glad we had some come through by email. Sounds like we had a shy audience today. So
Peter,
I'm glad.
What do you expect? The capital of the United States just got pillaged. You know what I mean?
Everybody's watching. Everyone's watching
on
CNN right now.
Everyone's on CNN right now. People are like on edge.
No, all good. I think this is a great topic, a great way to kick off 2021. And then, on a personal note, Eli, I'm looking forward to working with you on our Q1 planning when you come back for vacation next week.
That's right. It's taking a little bit of time to just let go. So we're not gonna be around next week, but we'll be back the week of the 19th. We'll see you at same time, same place. It's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays going forward for the time being. So good luck this year. Take some of these strategies, start putting together your plus deltas, start your start, stop, continues, and start figuring it out, like how you want to start approaching Q1 of this year, both personally and professionally. And if you need help figuring it out, and when you want to talk through some challenges, go to yourcareerstrategy.com and book a free 30-minute coaching call with either myself or Peter. And we'd be happy to just talk through all these things, no obligation. All right, everyone.
Thanks, Eli. Thanks, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.